Welcome to the Sourcing Hero podcast, produced by UNA, a group purchasing organization that empowers sourcing heroes, and Art of Procurement, the world's largest procurement podcast network. I'm your host, Kelly Barner. The goal of the Sourcing Hero podcast is to capture the epic stories of people who are rising up and beating the odds to create exceptional value within procurement, directly from those heroes themselves. Today, my guest here on the Sourcing Hero podcast is Kathy Perna. Kathy may not be a procurement professional in practice, but she is a critical member of our community and one that has been hard at work promoting networking and education for 30 years. First, as part of the National Association of Purchasing Managers, or NAPM, and now as the executive director of ISM-New Jersey. So, hi, Kathy. Thank you so much for being with me today.
Oh, thank you. Thank you for having me.
So I shared a very little bit of detail in my intro, but you've had 30 years, so I'm assuming there's a lot more you've been up to. What else would you like people to know about your background before we dig into our conversation today?
Sure. Well, first of all, I do want to express my thanks for bringing me onto the show today. Hope everybody doesn't get bored with my background, because I am not a supply management procurement person. But as far as my background, I actually started after college at ITT, and that is now, I believe, L3 Harris, and I was actually, that's the aerospace division. So I was more administrative support at that point for about 5 years there. Then I had my children, and then I started a part-time position with NAPM at the time, which National Association of Purchasing Managers. And eventually I was hired out to do it exclusively as the executive director. And then eventually we became Institute for Supply Management. And actually next March will be my 30th year in the organization.
That is absolutely amazing. And we'll have a chance as we go through our conversation to talk about, some of the things that you've seen changed over the years. But even though you haven't worked as a procurement practitioner, I think it provides a really critical sense of continuity and commitment to the role to have you involved for so long. So I'm going to mark down March, and I will get in touch next year, and we will officially celebrate 30 years. I think that is an amazing milestone that very few other people in any role in procurement can actually have a claim to.
Thank you so much. I mean, it's a joy. It's a joy doing my job. And honestly, I think you need to really enjoy what you do in order to stay in that particular role.
I think you do too, and especially where all of us have gone through some type of reinvention, we could call it, over the last couple of years. And I would venture to guess that any of the people listening in that do know you probably crossed paths with you on LinkedIn, because you are a very active supporter and even evangelist on the part of continuing education. You're always marketing an upcoming webinar, networking session, opportunity for people to learn. For people that haven't actually discovered any of that, what does your overall educational program look like?
Okay, so I would say probably about 20 years ago is when we actually started, or I actually started within our organization doing webinars, maybe one per month type of thing. And then when the pandemic happened and everything stopped, I went to our executive board and I said, I think we really need to up the ante. I can actually put on more programs. So that's what I started doing. So I started the real program probably about March 2020. And I did that because everybody in supply chain, well, most people in supply chain, a lot of them were working from home, working remotely. It was a totally different era that we're living in now. and I wanted to keep everybody engaged. You could be a member, you didn't have to be a member to join. So I wanted to make sure we just, get our message out. We were communicating with them. Plus, we get to hear from them and find out what their challenges are and their issues as well. So my program is I do about 4 to 5 webinars per month. And at the point right now, we do have about 12 ISM chapters that participate in our program, and I call it a partnership program because we collaborate together. People are always getting me, finding speakers, they're finding topics, they're sending me stuff. I find stuff on LinkedIn all the time. I communicate with so many people on LinkedIn that the topics just seem to come to me at my laptop, and it's great. The community is really wonderful, and it's been a joy doing it, and I really, really, truly enjoy getting these types of programs out to everybody in the community.
Now, to that point about community, I think one of the great things about your program is that, as you mentioned, you welcome both your chapter's members as well as your partner chapter's members, and you welcome people that don't belong to any chapter or the National Institute for Supply Management. How would you say, or maybe let me broaden it, any thoughts or observations about how professional networking, the association model itself, how trends have been changed because of the way we've all spent the last couple of years?
Well, first of all, I'd like to say one thing as far as the non members. The reason I welcome non members, there's a lot of people out there that are not working. So we want to make sure those people stay engaged. It gives them a chance to then further network, and then hopefully they can actually get that next position or that role that they're looking for. So that's the one reason that I always felt it was really, really important to include non members. And hopefully, maybe they will even join our chapter or another chapter wherever they're located, because of course, all of our programs are all over the US.
Sure.
So, but I've actually seen a lot of changes, definitely as far as the networking piece, because things have. Do you want me to talk about how it's changed since I started, or?
I absolutely. How have you maybe seen that change? And then if we could hit the last couple of years, because I think there probably has been sort of an acceleration of change in there. But absolutely, how have you seen the association model and the networking that facilitates change in your 30 years?
Well, in the beginning, when I first started, everything was in-person events. So you had to go to a venue in order to network. And I'll tell you, it was like fantastic. The number of members that were in these organizations networking, fantastic. There could be 100 people or more at these events, and these are monthly meetings. We're talking about where you would have 2 speakers, and then things sort of changed a little bit. The first change I really noticed was after 9/11, because there was a big drop in companies. That was the first time I actually remember the supply chain getting hit
Hmm.
as much as, that was the really first time, because especially when we grounded all the flights, everything was like at a standstill. People couldn't even get home from that. So I remember that. I remember a lot of companies not surviving. So, of course, membership at that point actually declined for us and for other chapters as well. But then the next change, of course, was at the pandemic. And that's when people weren't doing everything in person. Now we started having a virtual type of program where even our networking social hours were virtual. It was the only time we saw people was on a screen, because we couldn't actually see people in person, for that time. And I mean, the change as far as LinkedIn as well is because you had to network online and you had to find the right platform. For me, it was LinkedIn. I was on LinkedIn prior to that, but not like I am now. I mean, I make sure I go on there almost every single day just to check things out, just to see what the stories are, and also to more or less network with other people in supply chain. I think it's just so really, really important to be active, to look at the different stories, things that interest you, share that to your community because that's really, really important. And the biggest thing is you have to stay active, especially in networking and especially on online networking, because you don't know when your next opportunity is going to be coming and you might have missed that by not being out there and connecting with others. So I really try to keep the network open, and that's how Kelly and I met.
That's true. That is how we met. And I had the pleasure of speaking in one of your webinars. It was, I will say, it was a wonderful gathering of people. It was an excellent opportunity to share. And maybe the other thing that stands out about it in my own mind when I compare it to some of the other events that I see listed is that it wasn't a straight down the middle, oh, how to source or how to discover suppliers or how to manage contracts, communicate with stakeholders. It was a little bit more personal and outside the box. And I actually think, if I'm correct, Kathy, that's sort of a core part of your philosophy when it comes to event topics. You don't necessarily hold yourself to the narrow traditional sense of what should be covered in procurement or supply management educational content. You take a broader approach than that, don't you?
I certainly do. And you know what? I'll tell you, I started that in probably 2020. And I always felt that you have to have the soft skills. You have to have all those supply chain topics out there, definitely, but you also need to take care of yourself. You need those personal, well programs out there. So the first thing we did was we did one. There were so many people burning out in the probably the first 3, 4 months. So I brought in a speaker, Jessica, and she was from California doing the program for me. And she did a program just on burnout. I was really surprised because we had a very, didn't have as many involved participants as we do now. But we had about 50 people on that particular program that attended. And it was really nice to see their questions. And it was nice for them to get the information because you never know if you have team members that are burning out. You can look for signs. So I always felt it was really important to incorporate those personal well being programs in addition to, as I said, the soft skills, communication skills, so forth, and also all the supply chain topics. And there's like a ton of those out there. But I always thought it was better to do that. What we do on our particular program is currently we have two different series. The one series that Kelly's referring to is our Voice of Supply Chain. And that is great because it's a storytelling, but it's a storytelling for business so that you can actually see and hear the career path and journey of those people that are out there, and hear their story. What were their challenges? How do they all go to get their MBAs? If not, why? Are they certified? There's so many different stories out there of the different career paths, and a lot of people love listening to it. It's now on LinkedIn Live, so we actually have quite a large scale audience on this particular program. And then we do another one called Supply Chain Information Flow with our host is David Johnson on that one. And that's tackling different topics in a 45-minute program once a month. And then in September, we're going to be launching Voice of ERP. So that'll be another series that we're doing. And in addition to that, we do certification topics and many other ones, including women in leadership topics and diversity topics as well.
It's interesting, Kathy, when you talk about reaching a very broad audience. And I could be wrong. I repeat myself sometimes, but I don't think I've actually shared this particular story with you. the interview that I did as part of the Voice of Supply Chain that you had set up, I believe afterwards it was available on YouTube. And for some reason, one of my mother's friends made the decision to try to understand what it is that I do. And that is the interview that she found. And I'm very much, I think, like other people in procurement supply chain, we know none of our family members want to listen to us talk about work. So I don't talk about work much, but that was a very personal interview and storytelling event. And she watched the whole thing and she went back to her mother and said, "You need to watch this interview." Because one of the things that I spoke about that I don't think I've ever discussed in any other forum is that my maternal grandmother was an Avon lady. And it wasn't until I really went out on my own and started working independently, although it's still inside of procurement, that I recognized what an entrepreneur she was. And of course, by then she had passed away. It was too late for me to have that conversation with her. But think about that. Someone that isn't in my generation, does not work in procurement supply chain, splits her year between Massachusetts and Puerto Rico, and yet your event reached her and created sort of a feedback loop within my family. And so you really are, if engagement and bringing people into the fold, building community is core to your objectives, you are absolutely hitting the mark on that.
Wow, that is fantastic. No, I have not heard this story. Oh my goodness.
So,
Oh my
first of all
goodness.
the other grandchildren and children of Avon ladies out there, you're in good company, right? Their spirit and tenacity and professionalism lives on. But the other thing that I hear when you talk about your programs, Kathy, and it's very clearly evident in the sessions you put together, is that for not ever having worked as a procurement professional, you seem incredibly attuned to what we need to be successful. And you seem incredibly empathetic to the personal and professional journeys that people are going on. Do you build that sense of community, identify those needs, kind of get that empathy from your LinkedIn and your networking time? Does it come from something else? Where do you draw from for that?
Oh my gosh. I don't, honestly, I don't know. I think it could just be me. It could just be the way I am. I just feel that it's so important to make those relationships work. You know, I just it's just been one of my core things that I've tried to do in my work ethic all the time. But I didn't. It's funny when someone puts it out there, you don't realize it. You're like, do I do that? Do I really do that? Am I really reaching those amount of people? I'm just, sometimes I'm just a little bit thrown back, and I am right now.
Well, we're grateful that you do the work that you do, and there are plenty of people that have benefited educationally. I love the fact that you prioritize people who are between roles, right? Because there's always people that are transitioning from one job to another, whether by their own choice or some other set of circumstances. I think it's an important thing to provide the community with. That's sort of the stickiness. It's not the fact that we all work similar jobs that binds us together. It's those shared experiences. It's the opportunity to forge connections and help people find the next role or help people find a supplier or information about diversity or learn from someone else's experience implementing an ERP system. And I actually think this provides a great transition to my favorite moment, which is the question where I get to ask you something that I put in front of everyone who joins me on the Sourcing Hero. And you have a choice here, Kathy. So
Hmm.
I would like to know from you either what does the idea of a sourcing hero mean to you, or what do you think heroism looks like in a business context? You can choose to answer either one of those.
I think a sourcing, if you think over the last 2 years, we probably have had a ton of sourcing heroes. You know, Let me just think on this 1 second. I was trying to think on this earlier because I know the format of the show.
And this is
But there
hard.
have
And
been
I've
so
always
Yeah, it
acknowledged this
is.
is a
It is.
this is a really tough question.
It is. It is. I mean, first of all, you think about all those in the medical profession who
Yes.
are our sourcing heroes. Think of everybody in the hospital. We did one program. I also do admin services for administrative services for two other chapters. So I did a program for another chapter about a year ago. And they work for a hospital. And to see everything that they had to do in the hospital, which would have been office space, and convert that into space where they had to actually find and source equipment to utilize in the hospital that they needed right away. We're talking bandages, we're talking, anything that they needed for the surgical room. When you think about all those types of things back then that they had to do in split second time, probably within like 48 hours. Yeah, to me, it's amazing. And I think I've learned a lot over the years, especially more over the last 2 years, especially about the global issues that are out there, the more of the economic issues that never really resonated probably with me with some of the other programs because we didn't really touch on it as much. But there are so many different types of heroes out there. I would say definitely everybody in that worked in the hospital, of course, all those that dealt with the for the oh, I can't think of it now. No, sorry, my word is leaving me right now. But everybody that is out there that has been sourcing. I mean, you've got people that are sourcing different types of food particles as well, raw
Yes.
materials for all our different things, and all the problems that we had out there, as well as the shipping logistics as well. And you have to think about all those other people out there who are sourcing heroes that we may not recognize that are work in the warehouses as well. So, I think there's a lot of different sourcing heroes. I don't really consider myself one because I just feel like I'm just getting the message out to everybody else. And I love the fact that we can highlight our sourcing heroes to our ISM community and to all those other viewers out there who particularly watch our programs.
Absolutely. And certainly I like the fact that this episode has given me an opportunity to introduce you to anybody who hasn't met you, but I also hope that people who are listening in will take active steps to join your community and benefit from the networking opportunities, from the educational events that you put on. What is the best way, Kathy, for people to either get in touch with you directly, or is there a place that you would direct people to see a lineup of upcoming events?
Sure. Thank you so much for that, Kelly. I really appreciate that. I would say connect with me on LinkedIn, definitely, because I'm always out there and I'm always posting and I'm very visible out there. The other way is you could go to our website, which is ismnj.org, and you can see our lineup of our programs that are coming up. And if you need to, you could always email me at info@ismnj.org. I am out there. I am a proponent of our chapters. And if you want to connect with me and let me know of a topic that you're looking for, we can probably put that out there.
Kathy, thank you so much for taking the time to join us today.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Kelly, and thank you to the audience as well.
Thank you for listening to this episode of the Sourcing Hero podcast. Join us again next time for more true stories of sourcing and business heroism performed by your colleagues and peers. Look for the Sourcing Hero wherever you get your podcasts, and don't forget to subscribe. Finally, don't forget, sourcing heroism is taking place all around us every day. Keep your eyes open and you're bound to see it. Until next time, I'm your host, Kelly Barner. Stay well, and always remember that you can be a hero too.